if you look at actual archaeological history, Gam Kesef V'Zahav. Interesting. There's actually a book, a Kaballah, one of the earlier Kabbalistic texts is actually called Ginat Egoz. And the word Ginat is an acronym. It stands for Gimel Nun Taf. Anybody know what it stands for? Ginat is Gimatria, Notarikon, and Tmurot. So Gimatria is numerology. Notarikon is breaking up words into acronyms. And Tmurot is transforming words, letter combinations and things like that. So you can rearrange the anagrams. So you have numerical values, acronyms, and anagrams. So that's Ginat Egoz. And that verse that we said we're going to come back to, King Solomon says, Kanasti ligam kesef v'zahav. King Solomon says, I gathered all the silver and gold. Uzgulat melachim ve'amedinot asiti li sharim ve'sharot. He says, I had everything. I had male singers, I had female singers, v'ta'anugot bnei ha'adam, all the pleasures of man, and shida v'shidot. What does that mean? So, shida v'shidot is translated a million different ways. Usually today you see the word shed, we say that means a demon. Okay, at least from the Talmud onwards it means a demon. But that's not what it means in Tanakh actually. And here this is a big secret, okay? Just get ready for this, okay? I promise this is going to blow your mind, promise. Because what a shed, we're so used to hearing the word shed and thinking a demon. But that's actually not what it is. The Tanakh doesn't speak actually of demons explicitly. From the Talmud onwards, there's that. And I think the reason it became associated with demons is because there's a similar word, which is shoded, or shod, which is crime, criminals. And so there's that. I think there was confusion with that term. But shed, if you look at actual archaeological historical evidence from Mesopotamia, you see the word shedu appear all over the place. And what are these shedu in Mesopotamian texts and archaeological findings? You see them even at the gates of Babylon, the famous gates. You've seen these like blue gates that they discovered in Iraq, the ancient gates of Babylon. And it's this majestic divine being, and usually depicted with the body of a lion, and the wings of an eagle, and the face of a human, and the feet of a bull. Does that sound familiar? Lion, eagle, bull, human? That's right. In Tanakh, that's how the angels are described, right? Ezekiel chapter 1, for instance, that's probably the most detailed description. Yechezkel describes the chariot of God as having a lion face, an eagle face, a bull face, and a human face. It's those same four animals that are found in Tanakh as descriptions of angels, that angels have these four qualities of eagle, bull, lion, human. That's a shed. So a shed is not a demon. It's actually described in ancient Mesopotamian texts as a guardian angel. And it's the same as what Ezekiel is describing. And there's actually very simple proof to this in the Tanakh itself. How do you know that the shed in Tanakh is referring not to demons, but to the guardian angels? Because one of the names of God is El Shaddai. What does that mean, El Shaddai? The God of demons? No. El Shaddai means the God of angels. So if you ever wondered what is the mystery, what is the secret of that name of God, one of the holy names of God is El Shaddai. Literally it means the God of the Shedim. Not of the demons, but of these guardian angels.
How did it change to become demons?
So I think it's because over time the word shed actually, I think only really appears here in Tanakh and maybe one other place. And because it was so mysterious, I think over time, and I think it's because it's so similar to the word shod, which is criminal, that it came to, or crime, that it came to be associated not with angels, but with demons. So it's definitely some divine being.
So we rely on our Farshim to
Right.
give us that, so that's what they came up with. It's not like just a dictionary translation. It's a translation by Rashi or...
I hear you.
So
I hear
how do
you. You could interpret it as demon. It's fine. And we have all these Talmudic stories that refer to Shedim as demons, and the Zohar expands on it a lot. So that doesn't make, it's not contradictory, meaning that word was used to refer, I'm not saying that demons don't exist, it's just that that word came to be used to refer to demons, but its original meaning was actually more talking about angels, I think. Also, a malach is an emissary, and malachim sometimes in Tanakh doesn't necessarily mean divine angels, sometimes malach just means a human messenger. So a malach is just like a generic word for a messenger. Shed is a specific type of angel with these lion, eagle, bull, human elements. Interestingly enough, in Mesopotamian texts, they're also called kurubu, which sounds like kuvim. Same. It's like Shedim and kuvim are actually part of the same family. And kuvim are also associated with the Merkava. It's literally the same root. That same Merkava, the divine chariot that Yechezkel was witnessing. So it's all connected, for sure. It's not a coincidence.
You see it in the Shema too, like the 6 letters. Shema starts with Shin and end with Chad.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even the Shema has shed in it. Starts and ends with, so it can't be demon. So that's that. El Shaddai, the God of the angels, not the God of the demons, which wouldn't make any sense. And
he's
so,
the creator of all. So he is the God of the demons.
True.
We know that there's demons.
Yeah.
So he's the God of the demons.
Right.
Just like evil, he created evil.
But I don't think we'd refer to him that way. Remember, God is always called, often called Hashem Tzvaot, the God of legions. So I think El Shaddai is actually in the same category of titles, meaning the God of, he commands legions of angels. And we have many stories of King Solomon, manipulating Shedim. And we often think that that's demons. But I find it hard to believe that King Solomon was manipulating demons. I think it makes a lot more sense that he was manipulating angels. It's like, was he engaged in black magic or white magic? I don't think that King Solomon would have been engaged in the black magic part. We're considering him a holy prophet and a righteous man. And we say, even though the Tanakh says he sinned, we say he didn't really, and so on. So I don't think it's appropriate even to say that he had this command of demons. I think that really he had command of angels. So one of these stories of Shlomo sending a shed has to do with him sending a shed or shedim to his friend King Hiram. You remember Hiram? Solomon and Hiram had a partnership. Hiram helped to build the temple. He sent a lot of the workers, artisans, and the materials from the north, from Lebanon to Jerusalem. And actually they even called, one of the names for the temple was Lebanon. It was built with Arzei HaLebanon, with cedars of Lebanon. What is today Lebanon is like half part of what used to be ancient Israel, the northern tribes, half what used to be Phoenicia, which is Tyre. King Hiram was specifically described as the king of Tzor, of Tyre, and Sidon, Tyre. These were the Phoenician kind of city-states. And the Tanakh describes that King Solomon and King Hiram actually exchanged territory. And King Solomon gave Hiram some of the territory from our ancient tribal lands, and we got some of the Phoenician lands. And there's even one tradition that King Hiram himself had an Israelite mother, perhaps from the tribe of Dan. So it's all interconnected. They're very close. And the Phoenicians took the Hebrew alphabet and spread it across the Mediterranean. And secular scholars think that Hebrew came from Phoenician, but it's really the other way. It's Phoenician that came from Hebrew. But it's the same alphabet, and they spread that alphabet across the Mediterranean, and then the Greeks adopted that alphabet. The Greeks originally had an alphabet like ours, the same. That's why it starts the same. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled is the same as Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, and so on. It's actually the same core alphabet. So anyway, the temple was built with cedars of Lebanon, which is itself actually has a very deep mystery of what Lebanon means. It appears throughout our prayers. It appears throughout the Tanakh, constantly Lebanon, Lebanon, Lebanon. And I think this has significance to what's literally going on in Lebanon right now in this end of days sequence, Acharit Hayamim, that we are in, and the temple being built with specifically cedars of Lebanon, Arzei Lebanon, and Mashiach being described as ke'erez bilvanon izgeh, that he'll be strong like a cedar of Lebanon. Right? Tzaddik etamar yifrach ke'erez bilvanon izgeh. He'll sprout flourish like a palm tree, and be strong like a cedar of Lebanon. So it has a lot of actually mystical significance. And two other major Kabbalistic ideas. There's the 32 paths of wisdom, which is really what Sefer Yetzirah is all about. Sefer Yetzirah begins by telling us all about the 32 paths of wisdom through which God created the cosmos. Lamed bet netivot chokhmah, or lev netivot chokhmah, 32 paths of wisdom, which are really the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the 10 sfirot. We talked about that before on the fundamentals of Kaballah. We'll come back to it in the future. So there's this idea of 32 paths of wisdom, and there's an idea of nun sha'arei binah, 50 gates of understanding. There's 32 paths of wisdom and 50 gates of understanding. Lev and Nun. That's Levanon together. So there's actually a very deep mystery there of the 32 paths of wisdom and the 50 gates of understanding. And interestingly, it's such a core idea in Kabbalah, but there's almost like no information about it. I've never seen any actual Sfarim that explain these concepts. So I took it upon myself like 15 years ago to do that job. And I've been working on these books, a 3-part series of books for like the past 10 to 15 years. One is called Lamed Bet Netivot Chokhmah, 32 Paths of Wisdom. One is called Nun Sha'arei Binah, 50 Gates of Understanding. And the third is called Arzeh Levanon, the Cedars of Lebanon, which puts them all together. And I never finished this book. So the reason I'm saying it now is to hold myself accountable, because now that I put it out there, I'm going to have to finish it. So, and you will remind me if I don't, because I never actually finished this. But it's really important, because these concepts are everywhere in Tanakh, in Jewish texts. But I don't know, I haven't seen any books that actually go into each one and explain them. If anybody knows, you can please tell me. Or maybe somebody will beat me to it and write it, and then I won't have to do it.
I think that the commentary in Sefer Yetzirah.
Yeah. We know the 32 paths. There are a lot of commentaries that outline the 32 paths. But have you ever seen something that actually goes through each one, like a chapter on each path explaining what? No. You only see like very vague, descriptions, lists, but like nothing concrete.
What does 50 gates of understanding mean?
The 50 gates of understanding is, this is hard. So it's a whole book but 50 gates, basically you've heard of this idea that there are 50 constrictions. Like Egypt is called Mitzrayim, Meitzar Yam, which means literally 50 constrictions. And the 50 gates of understanding correspond to those. They're the positive side of the 50 constrictions. There's 50 negative energies in the world, and there's 50 positive ones, which are the opposite. And coming out of Egypt, of Mitzrayim, literally Meitzar Yam, Yam is 50. So coming out of Egypt was breaking out of those 50 constrictions which enslave us. We're all constricted by there's 50 things that constrict humans, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's health, and so on and so on. The last one is death itself, the 50th constriction. And then there's 50 gates of understanding. And the sages say that that Moshe Rabbeinu had all 50 gates of understanding except the last one. And that's why he was buried on Har Nevo, Mount Nevo. What is Nevo? Nun Bo. 50, that he had almost all 50. And in the Messianic age, we'll have all 50. Like, we'll be free of all 50 constrictions. And interestingly enough, the Exodus is mentioned in the Chumash 50 times. So you'll find lists like that. Like, here are the 50 times that the Exodus is mentioned in Tanakh. There's 50 verses that speak of the Exodus, in the Chumash. And they correspond to the 50 constrictions that we came out of in Egypt. And they correspond to the 50 gates. And they correspond to the 50 questions that God asked Job. Remember, at the end of the book of Job, Job is complaining about God, that God was unfair with him. And then God comes out of the whirlwind and questions Job 50 times. He asks 50 questions, starting with, where were you when I created the world, right? So
you meant that
exactly. That is the same. Exactly. The 50 constrictions are the 49 gates of impurity. Exactly. And that's the 50th is death. 49 impurity, and the 50th. It's the same idea. So that's all in a nutshell, in a walnut shell, is the 50 gates. So that's Levanon. And so King Solomon had this friendship with one of the kings of Lebanon, who was Hiram, and Hiram was falling into idolatry and immoral behavior, and King Solomon sent him a shed, Shadar le'echad shida. He sent a shed his way, V'nachit le'ad shiva medurin de Gehenom, and he showed him the 7 levels of hell so that Hiram would not sin anymore. And that's the meaning of the verse. The Zohar says in Kings, there's a verse that says, V'yi shalom ben Hiram uven Shlomo. There was peace between Solomon and Hiram. What does that mean? We know there was peace between them. What, did they go to war? They never went to war. Hiram was good friends with even King David before. So why does it say they made peace? They were never fighting. So what it's actually saying is, the Zohar says, what it means is that they had a little disagreement because Hiram was starting to get steeped into idolatry, and King Solomon sent a shed to extricate him from that sin and saved him from that sin and made peace between them. A few more things that King Solomon revealed to us, fundamental mystical secrets, Kabbalistic secrets. Another one is the idea of the cosmic jubilee, of the cosmic shmitot. We've spoken about this many times too, right? That civilization goes through cycles of 7,000 years. There's a cosmic jubilee, a 49,000-year cycle, and civilization restarts every 7,000 years. And so that actually comes from Kohelet. There's 2 verses that are said to contain the secret of this idea of cosmic shmitot, that there's 7,000-year cycles of civilization corresponding to the 7 days of the week, right? 6,000 years of civilization as we know it, with toil and labor and hard work under the sun and so on. And the final 1,000, the final millennium, which is the cosmic Sabbath, 1,000 years of reward and peace and prosperity, which is where we're heading, because we're in the year 5784. So we're almost at 6,000 at that time of the cosmic jubilee. And it doesn't have to start right at 6,000, just to give you a little hope. It's not like, it can start earlier. Just like Shabbat, we can bring in Shabbat earlier, right? It is permissible to start, and many synagogues do, right? Many communities, especially when you're north, if your latitude is up north and Shabbat starts late, many Jewish communities start Shabbat early, which is perfectly permissible. And it's the same with the cosmic shmitot. We don't have to wait till the year 6,000. We're already on the brink of it now, and we can bring Shabbat early. Where does this idea come from? It comes from 2 specific verses in Kohelet. In one, King Solomon says in chapter 1, Ma shehaya u shehiyeh. What was is what will be. That's this idea of cycles of civilization repeating themselves 7 times. And what was done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun, because civilization repeats itself every 7,000 years. Interestingly, this is also a source. The Kabbalists say, Ma she'aya hu she'yeh is Moshe. Ma she'aya hu is Moshe. And they say that, therefore, Mashiach, the final Redeemer, is the first Redeemer, Moshe. The one who redeemed us first will come back to redeem us again. He that was will be again. So that's the same verse that's used as a proof for that the first Redeemer comes back in the last Redeemer. Mashaya Ushayim. And then the other verse is in chapter 3, where he says, Et hakol asa yafeh be'ito, that God made everything precisely at the right time. Gam et ha'olam natan belibam, mibli asher lo imtza ha'adam et ha'maseh asher asa ha'elohim merosh ve'ad sof. That God makes everything in its exact time, but he makes sure that men do not know that all of this has already happened before. Right? Like we don't know mibli asher lo imtza ha'adam et ha'maseh asher asa. That a person we are not aware of those past civilizations, of those past lives, of those past eons of time. But God made each one in its precise time. And Kohelet Rabbah, the Midrash, takes this verse and says, "Et hakol asher asa yafeh be'ito, amar Rabbi Abahu, mikan shaya kadosh baruch hu." From this we learn that God used to be boneh olamot u'machrivan, boneh olamot u'machrivan. That prior to our world, God was already creating and destroying previous worlds. So even the notion